Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. So yes, here we are. We are here back again to discuss, of course, the original in this franchise, of course. And yes, this is something that I said, around about a week ago now. I said I'd be going through all 7 of these films in the box set behind me, the Blu-ray set there. So of course, here it is, the first part, of this set. This contains just the original, of course, many special features as well on there, bonus material. So yes, just the first here in terms of the films, and yes, this film, of course, it's going to be great to discuss all 7 of these films. But yes, of course, I watched, this film again. Rewatched, of course. I've seen it many, many times, just like the some of the other ones as well. In the franchise. But I saw this one again around about a week ago now, and of course tonight I actually rewatched the second one, which is going to be great to discuss. I have lots to say about that one as well. So yes, of course. There will be spoilers for this discussion, so if you haven't seen the film, of course, yes, I recommend watching the film first and then coming back to this review. But of course, I won't be kind of spoiling, the later films, for example, in the franchise. So if you haven't seen them, but you've seen the first, you don't need to worry. I won't be getting into any, details. It's kind of there'll be brief comparisons, between this and the later entries, but I won't be giving away any sort of plot details, for them films. So yes, with that said, let's dig into this. Wow, this film, this special, special horror film, and it's a film that I've seen many, many times. Of course, great memories of. Just seeing a number of these films when I was younger. Of course, I saw them. I was I was very young when I saw these films actually in primary school. I was less than 10 years actually old. So yes, it was great to kind of go back and see these ones again. It's going to be great to kind of revisit these all of these films. It's been a few years since I've kind of seen a few of them, so it's going to be great to kind of do. Very, very nostalgic, for me. So yes, it was going to be great. And this one for me, it's such a special film for so many reasons, and for me personally, this is the absolute finest in the franchise. It really is one of my favourite horror films of all time, and such a stunning achievement. I think such a visionary piece of cinema. In so many areas, and I think just how creative this film is. Of course, written and directed by Wes Craven, and he is a great, great horror director. In my opinion, of course, I've discussed that before. But doing Scream as well, making Scream. So, he was such a inspirational, filmmaker. I feel, and yes, this film here is for me his absolute best film that I've seen. So yes, such a stunning piece of work, and it's mixing so many different genres, sub-genres, of course. Body horror, a big element of some of the later films as well, even more so, but this film as well. And I think just the kind of surreal nature of this one, and the blend of blending reality, fantasy, in the way of dreams, and what is this a dream, is this real, in this film. It really maintains maintains a particular atmosphere and kind of a feeling that is so hard to describe. And this is kind of it's one of them films that CineArts is made for. How to tell a story in this way. It can only be done here, and I think it's such a wonderful film. As well, in the warmth. The kind of the characters, of course. Nancy in particular, and of course Glenn, which we'll get to. But all these characters kind of banding together to defeat this villain, who of course, he's one of the most powerful villains in so many regards, because of course what he does, in the dreams, for example, killing different, characters, kind of happens in real life, once that's kind of occurred. So yes, what a kind of, you could say, it seems to be at the beginning of the film, kind of an unstoppable character. Of course, there's many other films in the franchise, so of course he doesn't, he is, of course, in general, just an unstoppable kind of character. But yes, such a kind of unique, kind of concept here, and again, so many different themes in this film. It's not just, the characters kind of trying to, outrun this villain and to defeat this character. Of course, it's something very, very I think very varied. It's kind of a mix of so many different ideas, and as I say, kind of genres, subgenres here. That it really is such a unique and complete, and satisfying kind of horror film, and really just such a kind of wonderful. As I say, warm film that's full of heart, kind of passion and humanity. So yes, the opening scene, wow, we must say the opening scene, of course, from the get-go, this film is absolutely stunning and really, actually in general, I think this film in particular, in the franchise, very little flaws at all for me. I think just a few things which we'll get to, in the final act of the film, including the ending. Not the best, but other than that, I think really this is very nearly a flawless horror film. And the opening scene, wow, this film, as well, this is so on edge. It's definitely the most disturbing and I think just dirty, kind of feeling, grimy perhaps, film in the entire franchise. Of course, they do more explosive, kind of amounts of gore and stuff as we go on, but this film here is the most disturbing and the most effective in its kind of balance of, gore as well as, subtlety and just the imagery, the way in which we have this, these build-ups, these sustained sequences, of tension, horror, and just this atmosphere, and the way in which Wes Craven directs this film. Wow, this is pretty genius actually in many moments. And I think the opening scene, of course, we have Tina Gray, she's of course in this dream, and as we know, and trying to outrun, of course, our main villain. And this is a perfect way to kind of set the film up. It has everything kind of working so wonderfully here. The sound design and different sound effects that are used are so kind of they really get into your kind of psyche, and just so unsettling and disturbing. I feel just really, it makes me jump. It makes me, it fills me with dread, and of course, as well, the thrill of it, as a kind of the way in which it's kind of directed, that opening scene is so stunning, and of course, just the way in which we have this character chasing Tina, of course, and all the different moments as well. As I say, the subtle moments and the way the film is shot as well, and just the way in which we see different parts, perhaps Freddy, as we go on in the film, and he's not fully revealed. For example, for the majority of the film, really in the kind of the first half, you could say, in different areas, he's not kind of, for example, shown as much as he's in part two, even, in full body form. So we get this kind of build up. We get this. It looks strange, and of course, a lot of the films, the scenes first as well at night time. So of course we have this kind of this very, very gradual build-up, of this character, and I think it's so effective how Wes Craven introduces this character. Of course, we see the signature knives for fingers, and of course, just his powers. His kind of his powers and the way in which he kind of manipulates these characters, of course, and how he can kill them through their dreams. That's such a disturbing kind of idea, and when I was a kid, it really disturbed me. This film, it's something that just, the idea of this, there's no escape in that sense. But of course, the characters, or some of the characters, do make it out in the end, and well, we'll get to that at the ending, of course. But this film, in its opening sequence, even then, this just blows me away. I think it's just absolutely stunning. Just to see. A film this well directed, really is a treat, and just as well, these characters. Just after that, we have Tina waking up, of course, saying to her mother, and there's something off about this film in the way in which this world is portrayed. Of course, mainly centering around this very, very small neighborhood, of course, and there's something about this, the way it's shot, for example. First of all, we have this kind of soft focus at times. We have this particular lighting, and the way in which this is kind of shot, of course, and portrayed in this very eerie way, of course, but dreamy way. And of course that is one of the big kind of things of the film. One of the main themes, is of course an exploration of dreams, nightmares, kind of thing. And of course, even the neighborhood, though, the individuals, the inhabitants, there's something off about nearly every single character in this, and I think it's so kind of disturbing. It's so kind of atmospheric. This one, I don't think the sequels, any of them, really kind of lived up to the kind of the atmosphere, the kind of tone that is set by this one. Of course, there is comedy in the film, and there is kind of wacky moments, perhaps. But I think this one really gets under my skin, and it really disturbs me, and just the way in which we see this neighbourhood and all the different individuals, even the mum, of course, Marge, and the dad as well, played by John Saxon. He is, of course, the lieutenant, and he's someone who is kind of just like most characters in this film, don't really believe, of course, Nancy and such, and of course, the mother though as well, Marge. I don't think it's one of the best performances of all time, from Marge, and the actress that plays her, but I think. It kind of adds as well to this feeling, this kind of disturbing, slightly off feeling this film has through the characters and the kind of how they act. Something is up. Something is very much off and kind of. Yes, something underlying, and we do get some subtle hints, and later on in the film as well, we get kind of a slight, kind of explanation, but we never really learn too much in this film about everything that's going on, and the way in which Freddy Krueger kind of is set on this kind of this mission perhaps to kind of his revenge, of course, as we learn later on in the film, but we don't get the exact specifics really. We get some scenes, of course, but nothing too much. So there is a sense of wonder to this film that remains intact even by the ending, of course. Very ambiguous ending, but yes, seeing these characters, it's just so strange. But of course, we have these four main characters at first. These teenagers, of course, they're the ones that kind of they're all experiencing this same kind of or the same character, of course, but the same outline of a dream, a nightmare, of course, and it kind of feels so real to them, as we know. And of course, Tina is the first one to be dispatched. She gets a very brutal kind of scene there, of course, and this scene as well always it was so disturbing when I watched it when I was younger, of course, but really wow, this is such a kind of graphic and just hellish scene. Of course, the way in which she kind of is dragged across the ceiling, this is such creepy imagery, of course, so disturbing, very violent, this film, but of course I don't think it goes too far in kind of focusing on the gore. Perhaps it just focuses on the actual the disturbing nature of this, and how the characters cannot really escape, or so it seems, of course. But that whole scene, and Rod, of course, as well, his calling to Tina, this is so disturbing, of course, and just seeing that whole kind of sequence there, wow, we get the kind of reveal of Freddy, the alley as well. That is just one of the most scary moments, I feel, in all of cinema. Of course, he slices, his fingers off, and just his arms, of course, they are kind of really long. It's so hellish. The imagery here is something that is so chilling. It chills me, watching it again. Rewatching this, it chills me to the bone, and just to see, this just hellish imagery, of course, to see his arms, that long, and it's so disturbing, and so kind of strange, surreal, of course. It gets under the skin, and of course, yes, his chasing Tina, and I think the score to this film, wow, this is something else. The score to this, of course, Charles Bernstein, scoring this film, and I think it really is something else. It's kind of got this is kind of offbeat, feeling to the score, something that you could say, and the sound design as well, that's kind of jarring at times. Really kind of it shocks you, but as well, has these wonderful moments, beautiful moments in the score, perhaps portraying the scenes in the daytime, perhaps, especially in particular, of course. But yes, just seeing the neighborhood, and the characters kind of discussing different things, of course, and hearing the score, in that sense, the kind of ways in which it's very beautiful, very melancholic, as well as filled with feeling this, and just as well, the chase scenes, perhaps, the kind of the violent scenes, it's just so pitch perfect. The way the score is used, in particular as well, the dream in which Nancy has, in the kind of classroom there, of course, and the transition in to the kind of boiler rooms, the kind of yes, there are moments there, transitioning to the actual dream, of course, and then Freddie. When he starts to chase her there, and the music kicks in, it's so epic. Really, it's just so it's got so much energy. It's got so much kind of thrilling moments in the score, and just as well that whole dream sequence there. That is something else. It really is. I think just the way in which this film and Wes Craven, the way in which he kind of understands how different elements of nightmares perhaps, or dreams in general, can play into this. This the way in which the characters have obstacles to kind of get around. Of course, for example, Nancy not being able to run quick at all. She's running maybe endlessly. Not actually moving forward really when she's running. That's something, of course, I guess many of you as well, have experienced in dreams, and it's something that's very disturbing. It's something I always thought about as a kid, but actually seeing this in a film, and the way in which it's kind of used for the characters to kind of really actually experience when a killer is attacking them and chasing them, is something that makes for such effective horror. And as well, finding no exits. Of course, there's no exits for the characters at times, and just the fact that this film, Wes Craven's such has such an understanding of how this can kind of play into the film and make it so suspenseful, so thrilling. It really is remarkable, and I think just genius in its execution, and certainly in these dream sequences here, and really the first half of this film is just perfect really, and I think the final act has maybe not quite as good, not quite as kind of compelling for me as the rest of the film, of course. But it's mainly the last 10 or 15 minutes, really. And of course, the ending, it's very, it's got an ambiguous ending. Again, we'll kind of discuss that a bit more very soon. But I think really the first and the second act of this film, is really a perfect. Pretty much, perfect balance between, exposition, of course, these kind of lovely interactions between the different characters, of course, and just horror, suspense, just surreal moments. I feel, and of course the script to this film is really quite something. Just getting so invested in these characters. I love all these main characters. John Saxon as well, of course, as the father. Nancy, and just this whole kind of way in which Marge is very comforting, consoling Nancy. But there's something very strange about her character, and we do learn, of course, by Marge, because we see them kind of them glances, at the funeral there, of course, one of the funerals in the film, but we see the glance between Marge and of course the father, and we know something is up, and the slow zooms, into the to the faces there, and the way in which that kind of scene plays out, of course. But soon after that, we get the explanation, of course. Years ago, many of the parents, on this kind of street, actually took it in their own hands, of course, because they knew that there was this killer on the loose, and they took it into their own hands, and actually they are the ones that killed Freddie. They burned him, and of course, yes, we kind of get that kind of whole kind of scene there, and of course we kind of put it together, pieces here together. The Freddie is on some sort of vengeful act, of course, to kind of kill different individuals in their dreams, and it's so well done. I think so well built up. The kind of slight implications first, and then the kind of the full reveal, of course. Further into the film, it really is perfectly placed. I think just the storytelling in that sense is so good. I think just enough, you get to kind of be satisfied, through information perhaps, but not too much. It doesn't give away too much, and of course the way it ends as well, the final shots and all these different moments, it's very ambiguous and very mysterious. Something that kind of I think about after watching the film. I kind of try to piece things together, but you don't get enough to kind of know everything, and I think that's brilliant. I think that really is one of the great things about the film. It really is just this kind of sense of wonder. But there's so much layers, to this film, and I think just the way in which, as I say, the world building here, it's kind of it's set up and it's kind of expanded upon as we go through the film. It really is something else. These rules, of course, these signature elements. Of course, the rhyme, perhaps. The kind of nursery rhyme. That's kind of brought up in the film, and of course we hear this playing at different moments in the film as well. Of course, including the ending. So that's something very disturbing as well. But of course we've got these different moments throughout the film that add up to this completely layered and complete experience really. And I just think the way in which Freddy as well, his design is something that is so genius, something so great. Of course, about the costume, the effects, of course, the practical effects in this, are something to be in awe of. I think this is some of the best horror effects I've ever seen, and just the whole kind of as well, the unique and disturbing, eye-catching, of course, with the jumper, perhaps, Freddy, the strappy jumper, and just of course the claws as well, the kind of knives for fingers, this whole kind of element of the film, and just so. The hat as well, it's all kind of adds up to one of the most iconic, instantly kind of frightening characters, I feel. But of course, Robert Englund, who masterfully plays this villain, of course. He really gives such a great performance, and I think he really, as well, adds a charm to this character, this evil character, of course. This one who, is truly. Hell bent on killing these characters, of course, getting revenge perhaps, but it's something that in the film there's moments of comedy, and there are, again, as we go through the series, the films become more and more kind of out there, wacky perhaps. They focus, I think, more on the comedy than the kind of disturbing nature of this one in particular. I think the grimy feeling this one has, the dirty kind of disturbing feeling, the kind of gritty, it's shot wonderfully, it's shot beautifully, but at times perhaps in the kind of the boiler scenes, perhaps, all these moments, it's got this dirty feeling, this kind of gritty nature that really is disturbing, and adds this perfect blend, of course, and it adds to this the kind of frightening element, but of course Robert Englund, just the way in which he kind of pulls off the comedy, it doesn't take away from in this one, it doesn't take away from the kind of scary nature of this character, and this whole kind of experience. It really is a perfect blend, and I think the performance here by Robert Englund is one of the best in horror cinema, actually, and just so good. And I think, as I say, the design of the character, the way it's kind of explained as well, the kind of the burns, of course, he has all over his body, and it really is, it's so as well, there's different really gross moments in this film, for example, when he cuts open his body, it is absolutely disgusting, in different moments. As I say, body horror really used in this film in such a kind of effective way, and of course this whole kind of surreal element as well. It's a wonderful blend of different genres, different elements here, and I think just the way in which we get this these different standout kind of elements of this character, these traits, really is something else. And I think just, yes, the rhyme, for example, and the way in which all these characters, there's this dramatic irony to it as well when you rewatch the film, but I think just the way in which these characters, they're kind of hiding things, and of course the past coming back, in this film, it's very effective as well. And I think just the performances, of course, John Saxon, as Donald, of course, the father, and of course Heather Langenkamp, she is wonderful in this film. Great performance here. I think as Nancy, of course, and of course we have Glenn, Johnny Depp's kind of debut role here. So really remarkable as well. For me, Johnny Depp really adds such a kind of kind of warmth to the film. The character of Glenn is such a kind of enjoyable character. Someone who's really just such a kind of cool character. Glenn, but also one really has a great kind of relationship, such a kind of investing relationship, with Nancy, and the way in which they kind of, as the film goes on, he does kind of kind of allow her to kind of do certain things. For example, when they plan to kind of he plans to kind of stay awake, so he can wake her, of course. But of course, yeah, it's just this whole kind of charming element, the kind of warmth, of these characters kind of banding together, and of course because we have Tina and as well Rod, kind of dispatched, fairly early on, in the film. But of course, so we kind of have these two main characters, left, of course, of the group, to kind of stick together and look out, of course, for one another, and just the warmth and the humanity of this. It's really, really wonderful, and just elevates the experience. It really is kind of an all-encompassing horror film. This great characters, great. Great villain, of course, as well, and just of course the classic, setup and the way in which certain characters don't believe, as well. For example, the law in the film, the way they're portrayed, they don't believe, this is happening, and of course, as well, the parents, for example, knowing that something has happened, but not quite revealing it to Nancy, for example, until later on in the film. But of course, you have this kind of bizarre nature as well, to different characters like Marge. She's really, really strange character, and the way in which she kind of she's drinking as well in the film, and it's very. There's something about her character, in the way it's portrayed, that is very, very, very strange, of course, but just kind of adds, as I say, to this surreal, strange experience, and I think just it's great to see. Actually, she's one of the kind of maybe for not intentional reasons, perhaps, but Marge is one of the kind of the funny moments of the film, I feel. But yes, just really very few flaws with this one. We'll get on to the final act, of course. We have the kind of final showdown with Freddy. I think masterful effects once again. We have the kind of staircase sinking there, of course. Once again, these kind of ways in which it's almost impossible for Nancy to kind of triumph, of course, but she uses determination, kind of willpower, in the end, of course. And I really think it's inspirational how she kind of defeats Freddy, in the end, and just of course just showing this determination. I think it's really an inspirational narrative, actually, and she's the kind of the last survivor, of course, as we know of the main characters in the film, and I think she really emerges as such a kind of strong kind of character, and I think one who's so determined, and just this spirit, this energy, feature through the entire film, because we have this progression, and we have this kind of all the different characters getting killed off, but of course Nancy is the last kind of survivor, of course, and seeing the way in which she kind of again beats Freddy in the end, because of course he doesn't obviously get defeated in that sense. With the later films in the franchise, there's more than one film, but as well, we have the ending, and of course, it's such an ambiguous ending. The last kind of scene, also, that is, I guess, it's just up to interpretation. It's not really, there isn't really a set kind of way in which we can explain the ending, and I think that's great. But at the same time, there is a kind of maybe bizarre and unnecessary moment, of course, when Marge gets dragged through, the door there. That is just, a bit stupid, really, for me. But other than that, we have this ending, of course, when Nancy, she wishes her, all her friends are back, of course, and of course, she does, get this, in the end we have the end scene, of course, where everyone is still alive, and once again we have this cinematography here, the way in which it's shot, it's so surreal, and just it's such a kind of it's such a dreamy film, of course. So yes, while it's not a perfect ending, I think it really is quite it's quite interesting. It really, really is. And I think it kind of yes, of course, it's not actually happening. We might assume that moment there, of course, but at the same time, it's a very kind of interesting ending. It leaves me thinking. It kind of lingers in my mind. The final shots as well. Very, very, eerie, of course, and the imagery. Once again, you've got these kind of moments in the film that's just such, it's kind of masterful in its visual storytelling. This film really, really is, and I think just in terms of the dreamy, maybe spiritual moments in this, and of course the gross moments. We have the body horror elements coming into play, and all the gore in the film, and also just the design. Freddy, for example, his weapons, his the backstory, of course, as well. It's so interesting, and of course, I'm always kind of wanting to learn more about this character. We get different things, in the later films, of course, but as I say, they sometimes, especially as we go, really far on into the franchise, they do go too far, I feel. But this one really, it finds that perfect, blend, I feel, and yes, as I say, his burns, and just the way in which, these practical effects throughout the entire film are just so stunning. Of course, as well, when Johnny Depp, his character of Glenn, he perishes there. That is one of the great horror kind of scenes. Really, I think it just really is such a great use of blood as well there, and even though it's kind of really extreme, I think actually that is a benefit of that scene, and just really so disturbing, and just the way in which I think Wes Craven paints with blood in this film, it really is quite stunning to behold, actually, and just the way in which we have these characters trying to stay together, not being maybe noticed as well. That's something that's quite interesting as well. I think just very emotional film at times. In the way in which especially Nancy stands up to her fears in that sense, and just is determined. And in the end, she of course she does stand up to Freddy. Again, it's kind of a strange ending. We don't really get the kind of way in which Freddy is defeated, of course, and there is later films. There's many more films. So of course, he doesn't die in that sense. He's not, defeated by Nancy. But in the sense of this narrative, he kind of is, in that sense, maybe spiritually, or in the sense of this, particular film here. But yes, I think such an interesting film, and one that I'm so thrilled by throughout. The characters, the writing, Wes Craven. Genius stuff here. Really, I think just the way he's directed this film, all the shots, the editing. This is stunning to behold, and I think the score as well. Charles Bernstein, really, wow, one of the best horror scores of all time for me. Just so on edge, so kind of disturbing and jarring at times as well. The sound design, all the different effects that he used are so effective. I think especially in the first half, these scratches, of course, the screeching, and all these kinds of moments. I think this really, when it's at its best, and then the different moments, of course, when Freddy is chasing the characters, and just the moments when the score kicks in different moments as well. It's so epic. It's so kind of thrilling. Just something I get kind of so excited by as well. In different moments. And I think just a wonderful film. This, I think, is such a film. I'm so invested in. As I say, the characters, the exposition, the whole world that is created in this film. Again, the final act / the ending. I think is something that maybe brings it down from being possibly a possible masterpiece actually for me, but it's very close, and regardless, it's an extremely high score for me, and it's one of my favourite horrors of all time. Again, there are some flaws, but it's not something that I care too much for. It's something that regardless of the flaws and maybe the way in which it's not a 100% satisfying or effective narrative in its as I say, the kind of ending / final act. Despite that, I love this film. It's so enjoyable. The humour of the film, the charm of the characters, banding together, and all the different side characters. But of course, the villain, Freddy Krueger, one of the greatest horror villains of all time. Oh, just villains in general, actually. He really is one of the best for me, and the charm of his character, despite the disturbing nature, and it doesn't undermine for one moment. It never undermines the actual scary nature of this character, the disturbing, evil feeling we get, the kind of the intrusion that he kind of. He of course, coming into the character's dreams, but not just that. The fact that dreams, in their dreams, of course, if they die or get, hurt, it happens in real life. What a genius execution, of course, based on, actual, it's slightly based of real events or stories, of course, but we won't kind of, analyse that. But just the way in which this is executed cinematically, it really is something else, and very close to being a masterpiece. This film, I think, it's a stunning achievement. And Wes Craven, I really think he is one of the greats in terms of the horror genre, and this film here is his finest outing that I've took part in. So overall, my final rating for this film is an extremely high score of a 98%. Yes, I think it really is deserving of that score, and just a stunning film. It really, really is. I think and definitely one of the best horror films I've made. For me, I think yes, it really is deserving of that score. I think it's absolutely wonderful, and such an effective, atmospheric, of course, dreamlike, of course, horror film. I think it really is one of the greats. The ideas, of course, these unique and kind of relatable yet fantastical kind of ideas. The way they're executed really is mostly flawless, as I say. It kind of falters in the last sort of 10 minutes or so. The ending doesn't kind of fully satisfy me, but it's the one that gets me thinking. It's the one that kind of adds to the surreal element of the film, perhaps. But yes, these characters, this narrative, of course, it has emotion there as well. It really does, and the moments, of course, when the different characters, are no longer, they perish, in the film. The creative ways in which the characters are dispatched of as well. Really is quite quite genius as well, and just so tense and so suspenseful throughout. It really is something else. The use of gore and as well the use of subtle moments, imagery and symbolism in the film as well. I think it really is a complete experience and just something that's very close to being a masterpiece. It doesn't quite fully satisfy me in the end of the film, the kind of last parts, but other than that, really, it's pretty much a flawless horror film. I think Wes Craven wonderfully directed this. I think Charles Bernstein, wonderful score. Such a kind of a thrilling score. Epic and as well really, really just beautiful, but at the same time very eerie, very kind of unsettling. And I think this really is something else. To kind of as well do this spin on this genre, but the slasher genre. For example, just that way in which this one really is so unique and so kind of so layered. It just mixes so many different genres. It's not something that is is mainly just a slasher film. It really is something else, psychological. And the perception as well. The levels of the way in which perception is explored in the film. But none of this film is heavy-handed really as well. It's really subtle and nuanced and so well kind of approached, so sincere and just a lovable film, really, with this great characters, and just such kind of at times a campy nature to the comedy in different moments. But Freddy, it's very much tongue-in-cheek at times, but not to the point. For example, with the other sequels, in the film, even two that I watched again today. It's not a film that takes itself maybe. It's definitely, for example, a film that really is a lot more comedy focused, and it's nowhere near as kind of scary, disturbing, it's hellish, it's kind of surreal as this one. This one really, it clearly is just, it's Wes Craven, is such a master, was such a master of the horror genre. Of course, hats off to Wes, and he really was a great director, a great filmmaker, and of course, responsible for particularly with starting this film, for great times, in my childhood. So yes, many thanks, of course, to Wes Craven, and he was quite an individual, and yes, just I cannot wait to, of course, talk about the rest of his films. Something I look forward to massively, and it'd be so great to talk about these films with you viewers, and I think this film especially is the one that I love, and it's been great to talk about this film. We'll kind of wrap up for now, and look forward to, of course, talk about the second film in the franchise very soon, hopefully, and yes, venturing in further, after the third one. I think it's when it really gets very over the top, you could say, and very different as we go through the films. Of course, 7 as well is a completely different film, in so many regards, for obvious reasons if you've seen that film. But yes, I think this film here is the best. It's the best in the franchise, and it's one of my favourite horror films. And in general, it is. It's fairly high on my list of favourite films. So yes, I absolutely love this film, and it's been great to discuss it, of course. And let's take our discussion further, in the comments. So it'd be great to kind of talk with you, viewers. What's your thoughts, on this film? Kind of horror films. Does Freddy Krueger? How does he rank, perhaps for you, among kind of best horror villains, and what do you think of this film in general? It'd be great to know, and yes, I look forward to discussing the other films, the franchise. So of course, it'd be great to hear your thoughts. What do you think of this film? How much do you, how much kind of do you like this film, and how would you, rank this perhaps with other great, horror films, other horror films, of course. So yes, with that said, it's been great to discuss this film, and I have some more reviews, planned very very soon. It'd be great to hear your thoughts, and of course, yes, I will probably review the second one in a kind of a week from now. Once I've kind of gathered my thoughts more on that, and yes, of course, I do plan, getting some more Bond reviews up as well as we go forward. Obviously, ongoing kind of James Bond reviews again, and yes, it'd be great to hear your thoughts, and I look forward to getting some more videos out very very soon. So yes, with that said, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.